Okay, I get it. It's another 2011 video and you're like, there's so many 2011s. How can this one be different? And the answer is it's a semi-custom American-made gun that is built quickly in East Tennessee for about what you'd spend on a Bull Armory gun. But you've got 3 colors to pick from. You can configure the frame material, whatever you want, and the build side is inside 2 weeks. Did I mention that part? Well, it's 2 weeks now. If y'all start ordering them like crazy, I bet it goes up, but it's pretty quick now. So this gun is actually kind of difficult to review because you have to say like, this is what the gun is, this is what it's for, this is who it's for kind of stuff. And this gun can be for pretty much anybody based on how you set it up. And since it is semi-custom, you can set it up however you want. Because I'm a USPSA guy, I was interested in kind of the limited optics trim. But if you wanted to get them to fit extra parts to the gun so that it flexes between limited optics and say IDPA carry optics, you could do that as well. Before we dive deep into the gun, I do need to kind of introduce the guy behind the scenes who builds these things. That is Gilbert Perez. Gilbert is a USPSA veteran, meaning he's got probably over at least 25 years, if not 30 years of shooting USPSA, mostly on these double stack 1911 style guns. It's probably well known that GP Arms used to be the #1 distributor for the Bull Armory guns in the United States before they started distributing directly, and he served as their maintenance and warranty shop during the time. So he's worked on a lot of 2011 guns, and he started up his own thing, and that's what GP Arms is, and the Patriot is kind of their full-size offering of the double stack 1911. They come in 9mm because at this point double stack guns basically just come in 9mm. That's the caliber that makes all the sense for competitive shooting. It makes a lot of sense for carry, so pretty much all of them are 9mm at this point. The gun, as I mentioned, is configurable on color. They've got black, the base stainless color, and a FDE sort of color that you can pick on the gun. Each gun is going to ship with 2 MBX mags. These are the MBX 140s. They do have lockback followers, so these will lock the slide open. So they're only 22 round magazines from the box, which, you know, is pretty good. If you're a USPSA guy, you know what you need to do. Those who are familiar with the sport might know Paul Kerr. Paul is a beast, and he's been shooting the GP Arms guns for a while. He used to be in the conversation at Nationals on winning stages in limited. Now he's shooting limited optics, and he is a contender in that as well. And him and Gilbert have been kind of figuring out what the double stack gun should be. The first negative that I'll say is that Paul Kerr is an absolutely terrible gun buddy. Michelle Viscusi is a lot easier to look at than Paul. So all that to say that the mission of this gun is whatever you want it to be, which is nice if you're a 2011 kind of guy and you know exactly what kind of specifications you like on a pistol. You can get them set up pretty much out of the box with the GP Arms Patriot. In full disclosure, this is a gun that was sent in for video by GP Arms, so it is on loan and no money traded hands or anything like that, but I do like to tell you guys how the guns come to the channel in sort of full disclosure. So we'll discuss the gun as I have it specified right here. IDPA guys will come back to you at the end of the video on kind of what the spec might be for something you might like, and there are a couple negatives that I encountered through shooting the gun, and I'll touch on those at the end. So as a competition gun for USPSA limited optics, this has a lot going for it. Just to go over the specs from the website, that's a black stainless slide with a silver, I guess it's just stainless frame. It has the polymer grip. It has a steel IPSC legal magwell. It's got the ambi safety. The Delta Point Pro plate that you see on the gun does come with backup irons that do co-witness through the optic, even with the Defender XL as high as it rides. It co-witnesses kind of beautifully at the bottom of the window. The magazine button is drilled and tapped and comes with kind of an oversized paddle. As you can see there, it's offset to one side so you can kind of rotate it up or to the back or whatever. It just makes getting on the mag drop much easier. I do want to spend some time talking about the grip because I personally really like polymer grips, especially for 9mm guns. My personal preference is for kind of the faster cycling guns. Like I really do like the Commanders. I like the Staccato P. My Bull Armory 4 1/4 tack is wonderful. I do like the 4 1/4 guns for 9mm. So this is kind of nice because it has that heavier barrel, but it has the lightness of the slide that makes it cycle pretty quickly. If you've got a good grip and you can control the recoil, then I find the Commander slide is a bit nicer than the heavier, slower slides on the 5 inches. The frame on this gun is a stainless frame. It is steel. As I mentioned, you can spec aluminum, but I don't know why you would. Steel is the best, in my opinion. It is a short rail, sort of. You can see that the rail actually is extended on the bottom, but it has kind of this cool cut that correlates with the slide serrations, as you see there. And to that point, the slide serrations are super duper usable. Very, very well done. The safety is an ambi, very positive fit, kind of on and off right there. The paddle is kind of narrow, but there's plenty for you to rest your thumb on when you're shooting, and that is really the only way you should be shooting 2011s. And the grip is kind of an interesting grip, and it does a couple things that I really like. First, it's kind of a medium fissure sort of texture, so it's not super abrasive, so you can shoot with it a really long time without tearing up your grips if you're doing a lot of like high volume training, but you're probably gonna wanna use grip enhancer to make sure that your hands stay absolutely planted. It's enough for sure, and it is a very good grip module. There is ample relief under the trigger guard, as you can see there with the kind of smooth bit that wraps around underneath there. That's nice because you can shift the gun in your hand very easily if you need to get onto the mag button, and it feels like it lets your hand up underneath the trigger guard so that you get really good control of the firearm. There is a hook for the double undercut to lock in your support hand so you can get absolutely planted on the grip, and it feels really good. The fact that the mag well is steel does kind of pull the balance down on the gun and really does kind of balance out sort of the muzzle heavy approach. The trigger, and I'll show it to you here, the trigger is a very good setup for a 19-2011. You can see very sort of short throw with minimal over travel. And I mean, the reset's a little bit weak. That's a sear spring thing. You can adjust it to get the reset to be a little more positive. But it's a great trigger. There's not a lot, you know, you would want to do to the thing out of the box. It basically, they build it to what you want to use it for, and that's pretty cool. The MBX mags, I don't know that you know this, but MBX mags, in my opinion, are the best mag tubes going for the 2011. They're just a little bit wider than all the other tubes that you see on the market. So if you're playing the game of making sure you get every round that fits into the magazine, these do it a little bit better than the slightly thinner versions of the other mags that are out there floating around. And these are expensive magazines, and you get 2 of them out of the box, which is really awesome. So that just kind of adds to the value, which is already pretty insane. Now, I do want to talk about the magwell just a little bit more. The #1 best way to speed up your reload, if you have a magwell, it helps, but really it's going to be dry fire practice. And if you're dry fire practicing, you really do need to use a magazine that approximates the weight of a fully loaded magazine. And today's video sponsor is JV Training. That's JV-Training with their dry weight magazine insert. You can see that this magazine with its nice orange thing, that's actually not a follower. This magazine is weighted to feel like a fully loaded 140 millimeter magazine, which means when you're practicing your reloads, you have a magazine that weighs like a loaded mag, but it's completely safe. There is no spring or follower, and it cannot accept rounds. This is a nice feature to have because if you're traveling or if you need to practice reloads in the safe area, you can do it with this with your actual base pads and mag tubes. So you get the best facsimile for what a live fire, you know, magazine would feel like. These come in 140 millimeter, 170 millimeter, and a small frame model that actually fits on the Shadow 2, the Canik Rivals, and it even fit in the SIG P320. So I would bet that it fits Berettas and all that other stuff too. These inserts were developed by John Vlieger, who is a national champion in USPSA and always finishing toward the top of the pile, and he developed these, and they're absolutely fantastic for training purposes using a real mag tube with the actual cutouts. So, you know, some of the other magazine facsimile training tools don't have the same sort of lock-in or release, so these will give you the best training experience for a very reasonable price. So because it always comes up, I took this out and I shot it side by side with the Prodigies. This is not a fair comparison, we'll come back to that, but the Prodigy is an amazingly good shooting gun for not a lot of money. The 5-inch gun is super duper soft. The 4-inch gun is no slouch either. Shooting this between those two guns, I found that the Patriot recoils just a bit less than the 4¼ Prodigy and about the same as the 5-inch gun, but it keeps the fast slide action of that Commander slide. As mentioned, that's something I really like about the Commander guns, but at the same time, the reason it's not a fair comparison is that basically everything else is better about the Patriot. For competitive purposes, this is basically out of the box, ready to race, whereas you would have to drag a Prodigy through the parts bin at your favorite retailer. The other thing that this is going to have over the Prodigy is the fit and finish. The fit on this gun is very good. There is a slight amount of rock slide to frame, as you can see there. The barrel is very well fit with basically no deflection. It's very good. So as a result, the gun is very accurate. And because the gun in this configuration weighs about 38 ounces, it's very easy to shoot. There's kind of a sweet spot, in my opinion, of about kind of upper 30s into upper 40s is what a gun should weigh in order to steady the gun but still be able to drive it quickly. And this gun falls right in the sweet spot for the weight on the lower end of that. Shot-to-shot stability is excellent. The trigger, because the trigger has a serrated face, it gives excellent feedback as to where you are through the trigger pull, so you have good control over the trigger, so it makes it an easy gun to be accurate with. Reliability, the gun springing is basically optimized. I think they're using an 11-pound spring, which is pretty much my favorite spring to use on these 9mm 1911 2011 style guns, so it's set up to run out of the box. And the magwell is beautifully contoured on the exterior, meaning that my XL sized hands fit wonderfully on the grip without the magwell kind of like forcing me up onto the gun. It's very comfortable. I'm making contact with it at the heel of my palm, but it's fine. In a nutshell, the gun is an absolute workhorse. It has it where it counts, and it can do pretty much anything that you would want to do with a gun like this. I had no problems with the gun running any of my just off-the-shelf range loads that I was shooting. My Buffalo Creek 115s ran just fine through the thing, and those are super soft shooting for 115s. Get great slide movement out of a gun like this. Now, jumping into the negatives, there are a couple negatives. The first is that the mainspring housing for the grip that they've developed has basically no traction on it. It'd be nice if there was just a little bit of a heavier traction on it to kind of anchor the gun in your palm a little bit more, but as it is right now, because the rest of the grip is so squared away, like geometrically you lock in on the gun where the traction doesn't become much of an issue, but that's just kind of a personal preference thing on my side. Next, and this is very, very minor, is that, I don't know if I can show that to you under the studio lighting, but there's just a little bit of lip at the front and the back of the magwell where the magwell and frame aren't fully blended. So there's an opportunity to blend that just a little bit better. I never hung up any magazines when I was doing reloads with it, but there you go. And the most, and this is still a very minor criticism, but the most annoying thing about the gun is that there is a loaded chamber indicator like port at the 12 o'clock position on the barrel, and what that means is that the gun smoke comes out of the barrel in a jet that comes right up the center of the glass, and the glass on the optic does get a little bit dirtier a little bit faster, and that's made worse by the fact that there are co-witness, rear sights on this Delta Point Pro plate. If the Delta Point Pro plate moved the optic all the way to the back and the filler slot was at the front, the optic would stay cleaner. That's just something that I like as somebody who doesn't use irons when shooting a dot gun like this, but I can understand the reason for it being there, because if I had a different optic like the Defender ST or something like that, the lens would be further back and the problem probably wouldn't be as bad. But with this particular optic, it does get a little bit dirty a little bit quicker. And in no way do any of those negatives kind of scare me away from the pistol. I think the pistol is honestly an excellent value. I mean, another nice little touch is it's got the tri-star of the Tennessee flag kind of engraved right there on the frame. It is a cool frame by a guy who breathes 2011s, and it is just, it's a workhorse out of the box. So something like this you could pick up out of the box, go straight to the match, and put tens of thousands of rounds through, and the gun would be good to go. Now, IDPA guys, I didn't forget about you. You can see that the slide has these cuts at the top, and he does offer barrel ports. So for IDPA carry optics, I know that's a really popular thing to do. You could totally do that on a gun like this. And then you could also have the threaded barrel fit for USPSA limited optics. Similarly, if you wanted to order extra magwells, you could do that. The aluminum magwell is legal for IDPA, and because he uses thin safeties, the rest of the gun is too. So you really do get a chameleon of a gun that can flex into both sports, or if you wanted a compact grip, you could set up a nice little carry gun that is, cheaper than a Staccato C2 and every bit as nice. So you have a real kind of value-driven sort of semi-custom gun that you can get built in a pretty quick turnaround that does all the stuff you would want a 2011 to do at a reasonable price. Can't say prices on YouTube because they're being weird about that stuff. Same with trigger weights. They're just getting worse about all this. It's really annoying. I absolutely would put this up against other guns. The Bull Armory Air is another gun that kind of is in the similar niche, and you can check out the video on that here.